What's up, guys? Blackout here. I'm going to be going over big blind and small blind versus button in 3-bet pots. Mainly from the perspective, from the perspective of both players, really. I think that this is probably one of the most blundered spots in the game, actually, for cash regs. I think people probably play the big blind versus button spot really poorly OOP. And I think that it's a spot that you can gain a lot of EV just by playing correctly, playing proper ranges as well. I really feel like a lot of the offsets end up getting missed and like various other things. So I think to start, I'm just going to go over the nature of both players' ranges in the 3-bet node. I have the solve up that we used for the cash solves. So I'm going to look at it, like initially, I mean this is the small blind 3-bet range versus the button open. About 14%, you can see that majority of the small blind offsets are coming from the pairs, suited 10x, suited jack-x, jack 9, 10-9, 10-8, and then a bunch of these suited ace-x hands. The small blind spot, I think, is a lot simpler than the big blind spot, actually. Because of the nature of the way rake works, you end up playing a 3-bet only strategy out of the small blind. I think this is pretty common, something that almost every reg has picked up over the last few years. I think if you look at the way the best pros are playing on GG's a little bit different because they rake pre-flop, but if you look at ACR and you look at stars, if you look at every high stakes game, there's like very little cold calling going on in any spot other than the button. Almost never against a small blind. Maybe there are some fringe cases against min raises, but majority of pros I think you're going to see play 3-bet or fold out the small blind, and this range has some calling. It doesn't have calling disabled as an option, so you're going to see some of that, like Queen 9 suited makes it in a little bit into the 3-betting range. King Jack off. Some of these off-suited bottom 3-bets seem to be mixing calls as well as the suited ace-x. The best suited ace-x, sorry, that don't that call in anti games, so ace 9 for ace 6. Obviously ace 5, ace 4 still really love 3-betting. Ace 5 really benefiting from folding on ace 6 for ace 9 off, and ace 4 for the same reason. The wheel interactivity is super nice. I think in reality you're probably going to see this if you just remove basically just the green from the matrix. Maybe add a smidge of Queen 9 suited 3-betting, and then this looks about right, I would say. From the big blind range is a lot more complex. So, because the EV of calling out of the big blind is just generally going to be higher, like the call mode in the big blind closing the action and allowing you to go post flop is really going to disincentivize you from 3-betting generally. So what happens is the big blind ends up 3-betting a more polar range for a bigger sizing. So you can see that we're 3-betting to $10.75 instead of 10. Value range is still relatively the same between the small blind and the big blind. You know, this like 9s plus, ace queen plus, like king queen, king jack suited. Like this top few percentile is roughly about the same. You start sprinkling in a lot more of your offsets are coming from these like junky type hands. Like you're finding some of the off-suited ace-x, 4-5 suited's making it in, 5-6, 7-6, which don't really actually make it in from the small blind. And then the highest frequency ones that I think a lot of people miss are these suited 10x and suited Jack X. So like 10-6 through 10-8, Jack 8, Jack 7, Ace Deuce suited. The reason I think the solver chooses to pick these hands as offsets. So 10 high and Jack high in particular really benefit from folding out the suited Queen X and King X region. So in rake games, you're not going to see like King 5 suited peeling 3-bet. Sorry, 1 second. You're not really going to see these like King 5, King Deuce, King 3 type hands peeling 3-bets. So when you're like folding out hands of the dominated suit and being able to fold out hands of the dominating offsuit region, so like Queen 10, Queen Jack, Jack 10, King 10 off, is like such a big win for these types of hands. And I mean, they still play okay. Like you still have some connectivity, you still have a suit. Like your hand is just gonna play fine post, and the removal post flop of a bunch of the hands that dominate you is going to increase your EV significantly. So I think just to start, I'm going to go through and play some of these. I think I'm going to play probably button big blind first. If that is, because I think this is one of the more difficult spots. I don't actually have any hands on this in the tree, in this tree, sorry, on my account. So you can see that big blind's using this like polar bigger sizing as well. I think that in the majority of spots, one of the things that's going to happen is with the development of a polar 3-bet range is that the big blind's going to start playing a really heavy checking volume on a lot of different boards, and just using a bigger size in general. Simply just because you can't really get away with range betting. Like range betting just doesn't really work very well when you start to have, some of these borderline zero equity hands, like ace 5 off, like it's just ace 4 off. I mean, obviously not on this board, but like you're gonna just have boards where you just have like drawing dead hands. Here this is close. I think this is like the clear cusp hand. We have a 3 straight, 2 overs and a backdoor, so I think we're going to continue. I think we play 0 raise in this spot versus the big sizing. I think this is a pretty common trend. You'll see if you play a bunch of spots against bigger sizes OOP, you just tend to play very little raising IP. I'm gonna call. It's really close, I think. And now we have a pretty easy fold. Yeah, so you can see that my hand is indifferent. So I kind of nailed it. The hands with the 3 straight. Queen Jack's slightly better than Queen 10 simply because you just have 2 stronger overs. Queen 10, no backdoor, is just folding. Obviously, like having a backdoor suit is really important. I would really cannot stress the amount you need to be looking at suits on board. It really hurts your EV not having a backdoor flush draw in these spots. Like you can see even a hand like Ace 10, where you actually have a 3 straight that dominates bluffs, is like, even with the BDFD, it's like still folding a bunch. Ace 9 as well. I'm going to look at the bots range now. You can see that basically everything's mixing other than the strongest value hands. The bot actually, I think, has a pretty low. This is like a relatively low frequency node with ace queen off for the bot. I can't really imagine that you put in a bunch of this big bet block with ace queen off on the turn. It's really favouring having the suit that blocks ace-8 suited, which I think is quite intuitive. Blocking the highest EV hands of IP. Ace King's just jamming. No, I would not be finding a bunch of these all-ins actually. Jack 7. King, like the best 7x is just jamming. I guess purely from an equity denial point of view, I kind of would like to rerun this just to see how we respond to a jam on the turn. I'm gonna retry fix. Just I wanted to retry mixed even. Doesn't matter now. I'll just move on, I guess. 885. I think these paired boards we're gonna play. Yeah, I mean the solution is 50% not check. I think 9x and above we start to play smaller bets, and then the more middling the pair on board, the bigger our sizing starts to become, and so you start getting to the deuce deuce 3 3 4 4 where we start to just go really big. So I think with king queen high with the queen of hearts, I'm gonna roll. I rolled a very middling number. I'm gonna bet. I think this hand is gonna bet a reasonable amount. Folding out like ace jack of spades is a really big win. A bunch of just the ace highs just gonna fold. Like we have the queen of hearts. Yeah. So you can see our hand's mostly betting. Some checking. We obviously do way more checking without the heart than with. Interesting that the backdoor suit seems to matter just as much as the heart. I guess because backdoor and front door, every hand with a backdoor suit and every hand with a front door suit are both continuing. So the EV between having the heart and having the diamond is going to be basically indifferent. We do quite a lot of betting. You can also play a bit of a bigger size and play more checks. Although I do think there is some value in playing a just an easier to nail strategy. Like it's kind of hard to go wrong. Like you can see as well the checking portion of this range. Like everything's indifferent. Like I'm sure you could solve this to a slightly smaller size and play a range bet strategy if you wanted to, and you thought that population weren't gonna respond properly to range betting. But obviously that depends on the games you're playing. I think nowadays people still attack c-betting, or well, people attack c-betting quite a lot now. IP, a lot more than they used to. I still don't think people do it enough. So I don't really think that you're gonna see too much of this. You'll see the bot do it a lot, but you're not really gonna see too much of these like small raises IP from many regs in 3-bet pots. I think people are still a little bit call happy in general. I think one of the best things to do when you're playing against the bot is to look at what nodes you think are most underrepresented and most overrepresented by population that you're playing against. So, sorry. So you can see that like these, like obviously this raise doesn't really exist, but I'll try and find a spot where it does. But top set. Yeah, you can see this is solved to two sizes. I'm not a huge fan of this. I assume this is done because one sizing is losing EV, but these sizes feel too similar to me. On a 93, I think I would. So I would check 9 of diamonds, 9 a lot more heavily than 9 of hearts, 9 of clubs. I think on a 93 we're still going to check. We just have such a strong hand, we can call on any turn, and we kind of benefit from allowing the out of position player to realise equity with hands there. They might turn top pair. This is a pure bet, is it? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really sure. Let's see. 9 of diamonds, 9 is checking like 25% of the time. Okay, so I'm doing some. Looks like on the matrix I'm doing some checking, but on the actual betting screen I'm not, which is interesting. I guess that's maybe a bug. I would have thought that I would play a very low checking frequency of all of the sets. Well, I guess you just don't need to be trapping those types of hands. Like, you can see that 7-8, particularly 7-8 of diamonds, is checking back a decent amount. So I guess this is just the hand that you choose to trap with. 7-8 of the flush draw basically just has the immutable, almost immutable nuts. It's so hard for 7-8 of diamonds to ever become devalued, to be honest. Like, even when you make a flush, you're almost gonna have the best hand. Yeah, can see that we're still doing quite a lot of checking IP. Like, we still have a bunch of these hands like Ace 10 through Ace Queen high that just don't really benefit from putting any money in the pot. Like, they just don't really fold out very much. Have kind of bad removal for OOP's check fold range. King high as well, mostly betting. The the checking range is more just around these like middling showdown value types hands, so like 10-9, 4-5, Ace Queen, King 6, Ace 6. So very minor inaccuracy there, not really ideal. Oh, this is a fun one. Jack 10x in particular is a really fun board, because we get to play all in as an option, and the reason for this is just that we have so many hands with the wrap around the Jack 10x that the button is just lacking. So combinatorically has so few good hands and so many draws that we just get to put maximum pressure on. With Jack 10, I'm not really. We might do more checkings just because we block so much of the calling range. I think on a 69, I'm gonna check. This could be a mixing error. I might just be supposed to always put my hand in. We also unblock every bluff as well, which is really important. Like, I'm gonna check. That's a mistake. Oh wow, we don't get all in this spot. Interesting. So I've looked at these boards and I've been getting I get a lot of all-ins. But here it just seems like we're just range betting, which is interesting. Maybe solved to a different parameters than what I've solved it for. Because here I would be looking at playing all in or check, really. Like, you can see that there is this trace node of all in, but like ace, mainly from like ace jack, Uh, that's just literally it. It looks like Ace Jack and some King Queen suit dependent. That's annoying. 0.2 EV loss, and I got a mistake for it as well. King 9 with the King of Diamonds. I'm just gonna go ahead and bet even on that number, I think. Obviously, this is an insanely good board for us. Like, we have a massive asymmetry when it comes to Ace King. I think we do a lot of checking on the 4 straight. I think we probably just play all in or check, and we go all in with an ace and offset that by having the free roll. Don't really know if we want to play this B32 node very much. I'm gonna check. And I think when with a 9 on the river, it's close between block and check. I think when we have the King of Diamonds blocking checkbacks, it's really close with the King of Diamonds in particular. I think we want to check and allow IP to bluff. Pure block, yeah. So annoying. I wasn't really sure with the roll. Even just naked King X is just blocking. That's crazy to me. This split seems kind of hard to implement in game. Like I think it's relatively easy to find some of these big bets. 10-6 big betting for value seems crazy to me. Ace 5 through Ace Deuce, mainly small betting. So I mean, when you haven't like blocking with an ace, we're blocking with the ace X that unblock pairs because we allow hero calls, and then the ace X that block pairs are going all in just to stack a 9, which is kind of cool. I'm not really sure if I would have come to that conclusion in game, but I think heuristically it makes sense that when you unblock the calls against the blocking range that you block, and when you block the calls against the blocking range, you want to bet against a more polar range. The spot is hard, especially the deeper you get. These out of position 3-bet pots get way harder as well. I think the paired ace-ace, we can just go ahead and bet really high frequency. On the turn, it's close what we want to do with our hand. I think naturally in game I would gravitate more towards playing 3/4 or check and play more polar. I think the bot will split these two sizes a lot more naturally, and I would imagine that Jack's no spade could potentially go in the second block node really profitably. I'm gonna check on that number. We have a pretty easy check call. This is fun. We probably get leads on the river. Ace-X isn't a huge majority of his range now that the quads is on board. Particularly when it's the Ace of Spades as well. Since I imagine that Ace-X of Spades is going to be doing more betting IP than Ace-X of Clubs, just due to the bonus equity. I think on a 93 I'm going to check, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just did a lot of block leading. It's a pure lead. Fuck my life. Yeah. So Jacks just goes big and 10 starts mixing, okay. So 10s is the borderline hand. I thought that Jacks would have been the borderline hand, but like 10s is the border. I didn't realise we just lead range. Wow. I rolled a 93 as well. Like, it makes sense. The trips on board is just so good for us when our turn check call range. The turn check call node is just so heavily pair weighted for OP that we just get to like fuck you lead the river. And then I guess 10's no spade. Oh, sorry, 10 of spades 10 is the hand that wants to lead. So why does 10 of spades 10 wanna... Why does 10 of spades 10 want to... Whoops. Want to lead more is the question. Interesting. I'm not totally sure why that's the case, but I'm gonna get a few more hands in. That's really annoying. That's a big mistake as well. And I kind of nailed it. Thinking out loud. King 9-7. I think here we have a very... One of the hands really that I think intuitively is going to want to bet. Want to check, sorry. Marginal middle pair type hand, marginal showdown value. Like, if we're going to play a checking range on this board, I think we have one of the hands that is going to check the most. So we have a very clear call on the flop. Very clear check again. I think we have a pretty clear call again with hearts on the turn. We have a really nice suit. I would never fold against the bot. I could see some merit for folding against the human player, but I'm obviously never going to fold here against the bot. Check again. On that river, it's kind of grim. I think having the Jack of Hearts isn't really very relevant. Since I don't think Ace Jack X of Hearts is well. I don't think any hand with the Jack of Hearts in is really going to be a very high frequency triple off as a bluff for IP. I think that on an 89, I'm going to fold. I think my hand is likely indifferent. So I think on the high number, I'm going to fold. But I think it's close. It's an inaccuracy. It's a call. Yeah, so when you have the Jack 9 blocking King 9 suited, you call, and when you have it, it's indifferent. That's annoying. Then 10-9 is the indifference threshold. It seems. 10-9 significantly worse than Jack 9. I guess 10-8 suited's the main blast off, or one of the main blast offs for the bot. Why is the 10 so bad? Yeah, I mean the low pairs with the pure and blockers make a lot of sense, right? But I'm trying to work out why having a 10 is so much worse for our calling range than having the jack. Is it to do with King Jack and King 10 suited? Yeah, that's it. So King Jack without the King Jack unblocking King X of clubs or is just always all in, and King 10 is just always checking. So the bottom value hand being King Jack makes having a Jack really good. Wow, the bot is fucking savage, man. I didn't think King Jack would just be like tripling. I really thought it was going to be like a two pair plus kind of spot value wise for IP on that river. King Jack is like savage. And like, yeah, Ace. I guess Ace of Clubs Jack is a hand that I didn't think of when I was talking about the Jack of Hearts tripling, but. Whoops. Super clear call her. And then I think it's really important on these types of boards to start thinking about when you like what value hands you beat when you start betting and what the function of betting here is. Because this is very much a board where our position is going to do a lot of checking on. Like this is quite a favourable board for IP. So when he bets this board, his value range is more. His range is more polar on the turn when he goes bet check. It's not like we're betting into a capped range, really. I think he can have lots of good hands. I think King 9 is. This might be like the bottom value hand that bets. Simply because we have a hand where we can dog the big blind's worst 9x. If I had like 10-9, I would check here a lot. The question is whether we play 2e. Were we geometric sizing the turn? Or we play small? And I think we play majority small and just set up a 1 SPR on the river. And then we have a very clear jam, I think. Yeah, so yeah, King nine is 10-9's actually betting more than King nine when we use the small sizing. I guess 10-9 just wants to bet more from a terms of equity denial point of view. 10-9 unblocks more of the check folds. Um, it's kind of funky the way the range is constructed because we're splitting this geometric size and a small size, and Queen nine's going pure in the geo node and King nine's going pure in the small. So I guess we'll look at the bot's checking range. So the bot is just blasting most of like the king high type hands. Like king high no backdoor is just getting blasted off. Other than the pair on board type hands. So I guess if we play this big size on the turn, I'm curious why Queen 9 in particular really wants to bet big. Like I can understand Ace 9, but Queen 9 is peculiar, I think. Why Queen 9 wants to bet big and King 9 wants to check. 10 9 8. This, I don't think this board is as bad for us as it initially looks. I think I have like a very intuitively easy check. I think with the Ace of Diamonds, it's a lot less of an intuitive check, but I think Ace King High is one of the first hands that makes sense to start. You want to start checking on this board. I rolled an 89, so I'm gonna check. But especially when we have a hand double blocking backdoors, so we're gonna have one of the highest frequency betting volume combos of Ace King. On the turn, it's weird. I'm not sure if we want to just play geometric pot or we want to block the turn a lot. I think, given the way that our checking range is constructed, we're not going to be checking that many. We're going to be checking a lot on the flop, but we're not going to be checking that much. I am going to check again. And then on a 54, I think that we likely just have a hand that, I think it might just be a B75. A lot of the pairs are just going to be betting themselves before the river. When we have the Ace of Diamonds, big betting becomes much more appealing than blocking. And like, the problem is when we bet the river here, so much of our range is one pair that I'm not really sure if we get to play a big sizing or we want to play a block sizing to. Yeah. So I was saying, Barry, I think specifically Ace King with a diamond is going to be a hand that wants to be 75. But I think the way our range functions as a whole, we're going to want to play block 3 bets. I'm going to block, but I think we're just going to have this weird range on this river where we end up with a bunch of mixing in every sizing and we play like 3 sizes. I fucking knew it, man. It's so ill. Like, it's so sick. I knew exactly what was gonna happen. Um, so it's not quite what I was saying. Like, King Queen is just, is that B125? Yeah. So King Queen is just, I guess a lot of IP's hero call range comes from offsuited combinations of like Ace of Diamonds 10, King of Diamonds Jack type hands. So when we B150, we block all of the hand play, all of the hero calls for the bigger sizing. It's the same with aces, but aces with the ace of diamonds is overbetting, and aces no ace of diamonds is B75. But then ace of diamonds king is B75, and ace of king no diamond is B150, B125. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if I would have found these a lot of these overbets. Like, I think I would have played a block and pot really. I don't think I would have been splitting these two ranges in game. You can see that a lot of the hands that are blocking are like Jack 7 and 10-7. A lot of the blocks are just pure blocks. Ace 10 blocking. Ace 10 unblocking King 10 suited is a block. It's annoying. I thought it was going to be a spot where we play just a bunch of sizes, and it's like we're trying to really just guess which range our hand interacts with. Nines is just mixing everything. This is like nines no diamond. Oh sorry, nine of hearts, nine of clubs is just literally doing everything. It's annoying. This is looking like a kind of juicy blast off hand immediately to me. On a lot of boards, we end up using deuces through fours just for the pure unblocker effects. To end up generating enough bluffs on later streets. On a 49 with no spade, I think I'm gonna check. C-betting this board, betting IP this board does get a bit more dicey because we're going to be betting into not uncapped, but like a very, oh well, I guess he is uncapped, but very strong range that's going to be doing a lot of checking as a whole on this board. I'm gonna check with the spade. I think on that number I would bet. You want to do more betting with the spade. Just in general, having a backdoor flush draw, more equity makes you want to do more betting on the flop. And with these pocket pairs, when you're bluffing, like you want to have the flop suit because when you turn the set, you just your turn set's a higher equity. This could be a hand that we end up bluffing now pure on the turn, to be honest. On a queen, I think I'm just gonna geo turn. Fuck's sake, man. It's a pure check. How is deuce is a pure check? That's tilt. I guess we just don't bluff on paired. Huh. Sorry, I guess we just don't bluff paired even at all, really. When they are, they're just betting small. And you're just like hand play big betting, like the nut flush draw and nines is doing some, tens is doing some. And then we're just hand playing like sets and two pair plus. Doing a bunch of small betting with marginal showdown value and man, that's tilt. I didn't think that paired would be pure checks. That's like a big error as well. Holy shit. That's like bad. Like 2.4 EV loss is like a lot. I probably just absolutely annihilated my average EV loss in this spot with that one hand. King 10, I think we have an easy call here. Then I think that we going to split here between small bet and check. I think with diamonds, I would really want to check my hand. With clubs, it's close. I think with King 10, I'm gonna bet because we unblock. Might be a pure check. I wouldn't be surprised. And then obviously we're all in on the river because we have a full house. Yeah, it is mixing still. Like King 10 through King Queen are all mixing, which makes sense. And then the King X that unblock all of the pairs that call, doing the most betting. I'm gonna go and play the small blind spot now. Let's see how bad my 36% did I just get in that spot. I think I just nailed it accuracies in like every spot. So I'm going to play the small blind spot now. I think the small blind spot is a lot easier. The big blind spot is maybe the hardest 3-bet pot spot to play. Button versus big blind out of position. Especially if you're trying to mix properly. I mean, a lot of people when they play against the bot, if you're not mixing, you are just going to like nail a bunch of spots where everything's a mix. Like if you're trying to play appropriate frequencies, it gets a lot more difficult. Here I think we can either check or bet small. I think with the king of spades on that number I'm going to bet. That's obviously an inaccuracy. It's a big bet instead. Keep getting baited by these 2 bet sizes as well. I mean, normally IP ace high is a polar probe IP, but I'm not sure. I wasn't really sure when on ace 9 7. There's so little going on this board, and there's so few hands with equity that I'm not really sure if us having a big probe makes that much sense. But it's almost a range bet anyway for out of position. Annoying. 7-7-6 rainbow, I would play big bet or check here as well. On an 83 with ace king high, I'm going to check. And I think we have a pure call against that sizing. Don't know why I rolled there because we have a pure check. And I think on the turn this is close. I think when we have the ace of hearts, we really want to. We have a hand that potentially could get stacked here. Like if I had ace king of hearts, I would pure call. I think my hand's gonna mix, but I think it's mostly gonna call again. We have having the ace 7 suited blocker, which yeah, it exists less, but it still like exists. We have 2 live cards against a bunch of IP's value range. Check again, and I think we just get stacked with ace king high. I think we just get stacked. Yeah. Did I get stacked? Yeah, I got stacked. So my hand's mostly, I think I rolled a 90 something and checked. As I said on the flop, it's big, but mostly big bet or check. I mean, guess ace king high is good enough to just value bet the flop. Like when you big bet the flop here, you're just getting called by hands that are just weak, like weaker hands, ace highs with backdoors. You can see that the weaker the ace high, the more checking you're doing. Kind of scales linearly down until you get to like ace 10, which I guess is betting bigger more because it folds out ace jack, maybe. Not sure I'm finding this 50% raise with my combo of ace king. Man, the bot is like, how do people think they would beat the bot? Like looking at these strategies, like people are insane if they think they would beat bots. I think generally when you're constructing check raise ranges on these low, medium, middling paired boards, you just want to take hands with backdoors that block the highest EV hands of IP. So like Jack 10, blocking jacks and tens with a 3 straight. Jack 9, blocking jacks and nines. Like you just want to have some sort of 3 straight, 3 flush, with good removal for IP's range, and just take those hands and run them. That's if you're able to do that in the majority of spots, you're gonna end up coming up with enough bluffs in every spot. So super good board for us, paired boards in general. I am going to small bet. And then the turn is close. Again, I think this spot came up before in the big blind button spot where I'm not totally sure. I think we're going to be, the bot would do a lot of splitting of these quarter pot and 2/3 pot, or like 3/4 pot sizes. I think with King Jack, we're just going to do a lot of betting in general. Like, we just have a strong value hand and want to be all in. Like, I'm going to mix some checks with trips in. I think it's going to be trips where, like, maybe like ace jack with the ace of spades, where we block IP stabs. Because when we check, obviously we're checking to raise. We're not really checking to check call. Or when we do check to check call, it's to induce a bluff. So I think when we have a hand that's relatively neutral in the king of hearts, going to bet. Yeah, nailed the 5% bet. Yeah, we're doing a bunch of block. Aces mostly checking. Needs no protection. Doesn't really want to put too much more money in the pot. Like, you don't really want to condense your opponent's range into Jack X exclusively. How do you extrapolate the study into a live arena versus recreationals with no experience with solvers? Well, I think, okay, so this is a relatively nuanced subject, and I think it's kind of hard to explain straight off the bat. Um, Obviously, when people talk about playing poker against recreationals, like the term exploit is like the big buzzword, right? Like everyone talks about, oh, how do I exploit this player? How do I exploit that player? Like, there are a bunch of coaching courses everywhere where they're like, oh, playing an exploitative style, blah 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 blah. Like, it's almost all of that is nonsense. You can't play exploitative poker if you don't know theoretically what the baseline of your strategy is. Like, you should have um, a strategy that's at least grounded in theory to an extent where you know in every spot, or you at least have an idea. I mean, like you can see on stream that I'm like I make a bunch of inaccuracies, like especially when I'm trying to mix properly. Like it's so hard to play perfect poker. Um, but you should at least have an idea of, okay, what does my strategy look like in this spot? Or how should it look like if I'm playing properly? And by playing properly, I mean playing against a bot or playing against a high stakes reg, which is the closest resemblance you're going to get to a bot. And then when you have a theoretically optimal, or you at least have a semblance of theory behind what you're doing and trying to apply broad strokes and be like, okay, I've seen this happen in this spot, I kind of have an idea what's going on. You can think, okay, so we know in theory we should be doing this, but my opponent is c-betting 20% too much. So we know that in theory when our opponent c-bets too much, we check raise more. So you can start to check raise more, and you can start to think about, okay, which hands benefit from check raising more against a wider c-betting range, and how can you exploit this? It's by using a smaller check raise sizing, check raising more marginal hands for value, and check raising more, just check raising more globally and bluffing more. You can be like, okay, my opponent. Sorry, my headset turned off. But you can be like, okay, my opponent bluffs the turn whenever I check to him. He's bluffing. He's way out of line in every spot. He's every time I check the turn, he bets. So your adjustment there would just be to just check range every single time you arrive at a turn with him, and just put him in a check raise node, and just shovel money into the pot with good hands. Like, I think it's important to at least have an idea in theory of what should be happening, and uh, why you're taking the line that you're taking with every hand. I think that one of if you listen to there's a bunch of stuff out there with high stakes regs. Um, if you listen to any hand analysis with any of like the top online guys, they always have an idea of what their range wants to do in every spot. I think that's probably the number one most important thing. So like, even if you're playing, and also if you're hitting like I think I'm like globally like 70 something percent. Bowie is like 74, 75. Like, if you're like hitting high numbers against a bot, like you're just gonna wreck people anyway. Like, it just doesn't really matter. Like, even if you're not like intuitively exploiting people, if you're just playing really good poker, like you're just gonna own people anyway. So I'm probably gonna play another 15 minutes or something of the spot, and then get going. King 6-5 flush draw. I think we are gonna do a bunch of small betting on king high. Especially ace king. I mean, this is kind of an easy-ish spot, I think, when we have the ace of diamonds. It's gonna make us want to check more because we're gonna unblock hands that check and allow us to check jam the turn. We are like unblocking spades, blocking ace x of diamonds, which is a hand that'll call the flop IP and then check back the turn. So on a 53 I'm gonna bet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did a bunch of checking. And then we have a pretty trivial jam on the river. Yeah, you can see that we're doing... I rolled a 53, which is like the cusp number. Again, I mean, I don't personally play two flop sizes in game, so like, I'm probably playing some of these flop... some of these two sizing flop strategies I'm probably not playing perfectly. The turn is close, like you can see that when we have the ace of diamonds or the king of diamonds, we're doing a bunch of checking. With the ace of spades, we're going to bet more. Guess because we block ace x of spades that we check to... that if we don't have the ace of spades, we can check to check jam the turn. I think also when we have the ace of spades, we slant our opponent's range more towards king x, and we have a stronger bluff catcher on spades. So king 7. I think we do a lot of betting here. Especially queen 10 3 straight with a backdoor again. I think we just gonna bet this hand really high frequency. On the turn, I think we're mostly gonna give up diamonds. When we do such a wide, when we arrive at the turn so wide, because we play really high frequency flop C bets, you have to be really careful selecting what combinations you're gonna barrel the turn with. So I think when we double block diamonds, which IP is going to float with the back door, we're just going to... like, having a queen is really nice. And, like blocking king-queen off. I think if I had queen-jack, I would maybe be more incentivized to bet, simply because we have a hand that double blocks offsuit combos of IP. I'm going to check on that number. And then this is a really interesting river. Yeah, there's a bunch of things we can do. I think when we check the turn our range, we're not capped, but the average equity of our range goes down quite a lot. Like, everyone kind of just... no one has a super strong hand, which I think wants to slant me more towards blocking this hand almost close to pure. It might be good enough to bet bigger. I'd be much more comfortable betting like aces, queens, jacks bigger. But when we have the 10 of diamonds, which blocks the rivered pair, I think maybe it's a block. Mostly checking the river. Actually with a 10. Queen 10 of diamonds is... yeah, so you can see that it's actually only queen 10 that's mostly checking. Well, what's the queen x interactivity? I guess it's to do with ace queen off, maybe? So when we... what's the bot? Like, the bot calls with many worse hands than a 10. So it's nothing to do with having But why does Queen 10 in particular want to... Queen 10 of diamonds and clubs want to check? Because those are the hands that block. Curious why Queen 10 of clubs wants to... It's weird. King Queen high. The connected, like the 3 straight boards in general, are just not very good. Not very good for us. Especially from the small, but from the big blind, it's a little bit better because we have a bit more board coverage because we're 3-betting this polar range. But like when we 3-bet the more linear range out of the small blind, I think we do a lot of checking here. My hand is close to 0 equity against a bunch of hands. I think you can just check your entire range on this board, and then on the turn I would split between block and check. I think King Queen is just going to be a hand that gives up and just takes showdown. I don't really think we're going to bluff very much. Yeah, pure flop check. Basically a range check on the flop, like I said, and then on the turn, basically a range check again. These really heavily connected boards are just not very good for us, to be honest. 3 and 4 liners. So oops. Ace 5 of diamonds. I think on an 18 I am going to bet. We have a 3 straight back BDFD. I think I'd be a lot more inclined to check with clubs and hearts. On the turn I'm going to check on a 71. I would do some betting, but I think not very frequently. And now when we have the nut flush, so I would always check ace king of diamonds. I think when we unblock the queen of diamonds being on board as well is kind of OOP isn't really going to have many flushes, so I don't think that block 3-bet. I think we want to play block 3-bet in general when we value bet the river here. Having a block 3-bet range is really important. I think if you have a hand like ace 8, you might just put it in the B75 region. I think when I have a flush, having a 5 blocking 5-6 might make me want to bet more. Or I guess we have diamonds anyway, so that it would be a flush. But we unblock 10-9, Jack 10. All these types of hands that are gonna potentially bluff the river IP. So I'm gonna check. Again, yeah, it's mostly playing block. Ace king of diamonds is actually pure betting well, and then ace jack is checking. Ace 10, ace 9 are checking the most. Guess it's because the hands with 10x of diamonds just really don't want to be raising the flop very much. Whereas king x of diamonds might. King jack of diamonds might be a much higher frequency raise than jack 10 of diamonds. Again, I'm just going to bet this flop quite high frequency. In position is just going to have a bunch of hands that are just going to have to fold. Question is what sizing we want to pick, and I think we just have a small bet board. I think it's these connected boards, you just generally don't play very many big bets. Like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that we are just splaying like a bunch of our strong hands into the big bet rate region, but Jack 9-3 flush draw would play big bet or check on this board. I think majority, there's quite a lot going on. A bunch of our range is going to want to check. There's like quite a lot of connectivity. Jack high in particular, quite good for the button range. King Jack is close. I think on that number I am going to bet big. You see that we're doing a lot of big betting here. So a trace of a little bit of small bet, but I think if I was going to play this spotting game, I would play mostly big bet or check. I'm probably just going to play until I end this streak. So King Queen on an 82. I'm just going to check her again. Bit of a connected board. Off-suited hands, we want to check more on these types of boards than hands with the backdoor, just due to having less equity. On an ace, on a really high number, I'm going to check again. And I think we just have a very clear hand that just wants to take it to showdown. I might have a spot if he bets the river. I think I would rather have a spade in my hand. I think King Queen high might just be a call anyway, to be honest. Okay. Does it never call? Oh, it just jams, obviously. We just call with pairs. That's sad. I wasn't really sure King Queen high would do a bit of calling, but seems like yeah, what I was saying with regards to wanting to have a spade here on the river makes a lot of sense, because when we have a spade ourselves, it stops IP from having a spade. Weights their range in such a way that they're less likely to have they're more likely to have hands that we want us to have. Okay, I'm probably going to wrap it up there. I hope a lot of what I went over was informative. Again, I think these are spots where you're honestly just best off just drilling them, looking at the sims yourself, and going from there. I think some of the ones, I didn't really get many of them in game, but I think if I was really going to study, I would really go and I would recommend people going and looking at ace high boards, actually. I think those are probably the most misplayed as a whole. This whole like concept of like range betting ace high boards has kind of just been a myth that's been around forever, and everyone just kind of does it and doesn't really ask any more questions. Whereas in reality, you actually look at the checking volume on every board, and it's way higher than what people are playing in game. Even at I'm playing 25-50 on GG and like 10-20 on stars and shit, and even in those games against like the best regs, like people still over c-bet. People still don't attack c-bets aggressively enough. So yeah, I think thanks for watching, and hopefully it was informative. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks.